Welcome to the PodQast, where we dive deep into the world of best-selling books. Each week, we explore the latest hits and timeless favorites that are captivating readers everywhere. Join us as we unpack the stories, themes, and characters that make these books unput-downable. Whether you're looking for your next great read or curious about what everyone's talking about, you're in the right place. So grab your coffee, settle in. This is the PodQast, powered by OnCue New Media.
Ever imagine getting a phone call from someone you'd lost? Like, gives you chills just thinking about it, right?
It's definitely one of those things you push to the back of your mind.
Yeah, but that's exactly what we're diving into today, the strange case of Coldwater, Michigan.
Oh, I've heard about this.
It's got it all. News reports, first-hand accounts, even a novel based on the whole thing.
Wow, so what's the deal? People actually getting calls from,
That's the claim.
from beyond the grave.
People were saying they were talking to loved ones who were gone.
I mean, who wouldn't want to believe that, right?
Exactly, and that's what makes it so hard to unpack, this human need to connect with those we've lost.
To hold on to that hope.
Right, but then there's the skepticism, the need for proof.
So what's the evidence? What are we working with here?
Well, we've got Catherine Yellen, a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Totally grounded, practical.
Okay.
She claims she was getting calls from her deceased sister, Diane.
Now that's interesting. A real estate agent, not some, mystic or whatever.
Exactly. And there's a quote from Catherine where she says, her voice shaking. It was her, I swear it, that was Diane's voice.
Wow.
And she wasn't the only one.
Oh.
The town's police chief, Jack Sellers,
Okay.
he said he was getting calls from his son,
His son.
Robbie, who was killed in Afghanistan.
Oh, man. Talk about heartbreaking.
Right. It's like this impossible situation, this desperate hope mixed with disbelief.
I can't even imagine.
And then, to make things even wilder, we have Tess Rafferty.
Okay.
She rushes back to Coldwater because she's getting calls from her deceased mother.
So multiple people all claiming the same thing.
And they're all adamant that the voices are undeniably their loved ones.
That's why. What are the chances?
Now, here's where it gets even stranger.
Okay, lay it on me.
Catherine, the real estate agent, she got those calls from Diane on a pink flip phone.
A flip phone?
Yeah, like the old school kind of.
You're kidding.
Nope, not a smartphone, no fancy apps, just a simple pink flip phone.
That's strange.
Right. It makes you wonder if maybe, just maybe, the ordinary can be a conduit to something extraordinary.
It's like something out of a movie.
Totally.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. This wasn't just a handful of people.
It wasn't.
This blew up.
Blew up how?
National news, everyone's talking about Coldwater, the phones, the impossible calls.
Wow, so the media got involved.
Big time. Imagine this quiet little town suddenly flooded with news crews, curiosity seekers.
A media circus.
Basically, you had pilgrims hoping for a miracle, people praying in the streets, even protests.
Protests?
Yeah.
Against the calls?
Yeah, some people were furious, calling it a hoax, preying on vulnerable people.
A whole range of reactions.
Oh yeah, everyone had an opinion. It was like the whole country was glued to this story.
Makes sense. I mean, who wouldn't be?
Exactly. But then, amidst all this chaos, you have Kelly.
Who's Kelly?
This teenage girl. She claimed she got a call from her deceased friend.
Oh, man.
But then it came out that she'd made the whole thing up.
Really?
Yeah, totally fabricated the story.
So you've got these heartfelt claims, and then bam, someone trying to capitalize on the situation.
Exactly. It made everyone question everything, like how do you tell the difference between genuine grief and someone just wanting attention?
It's a tough one, for sure.
And it brings up this ethical dilemma, right?
Totally.
Like how do you balance skepticism with this very real human need for hope?
Especially when people are grieving, vulnerable.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance. And that's where our next key player comes in, Sully Harding.
Okay.
Who's former Navy pilot, lost his wife in a tragic accident.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so he's got this personal connection to loss, to that yearning to hear a loved one's voice again.
I see.
But here's the thing about Sully.
What's that?
He's a skeptic, a man of logic. He sees the Coldwater calls as a hoax.
So he doesn't believe.
Not one bit. He thinks it's cruel, taking advantage of people's grief.
So what does he do?
He dives headfirst into investigating these calls, determined to expose the truth, whatever it may be.
So we've got believers, skeptics, and a whole lot of unanswered questions.
Exactly. And as Sully digs deeper, he stumbles upon something interesting.
What's that?
A connection between the people receiving the calls and obituaries.
Obituaries? Like in the newspaper?
Yep. the local paper, and guess who's at the center of it all?
I'm on the edge of my seat here. Who is it?
The funeral director, Horace Belfin.
A funeral director. Okay, now this is getting interesting. Remember Sully, our skeptical pilot? He's carrying the weight of that accident, the loss of his wife.
Yeah, it's always there in the back of his mind.
Well, get this. Horace Belfin, the funeral director.
Yeah.
He's got a secret. Turns out he's actually Elliot Gray Sr.
Elliot Gray? Wait, as in the air traffic controller?
The father of the air traffic controller involved in Sully's accident.
No way.
Yeah, talk about a bombshell, right?
So this funeral director, Horace, he's connected to Sully's past. But how? Why? It's just too much of a coincidence.
Exactly, and that's what Sully starts digging into. He needs to understand this connection.
So what's the story? What's Horace's angle in all of this?
Well, remember how Sully's accident was blamed on controller error?
Yeah, and they even court-martialed him, right? Destroyed his reputation.
It's all connected.
How?
Horace, or should we say Elliot Gray Sr., he knows the truth about that night.
What do you mean?
The controller who made the mistake, Elliot Gray Jr.
His son.
Exactly. It was his son who made the error that caused the accident.
Wow, this is huge. So why is Elliot Gray Sr. pretending to be this funeral director?
Guilt, pure and simple.
Guilt.
His son flees the scene, dies in a car crash later that night. The official investigation, it's already a mess. The flight recordings disappear.
Conveniently.
Right. So Sully takes the fall, his career, his reputation, everything.
And Horace, he lets it happen, knowing Sully was innocent.
He orchestrated it. He manipulated the whole thing.
Why? Why go through all that trouble to frame Sully, to create this whole phone call scheme?
He believed he was making things right, offering a twisted kind of redemption.
Redemption. By deceiving an entire town.
He thought the calls would offer solace to grieving families, and at the same time, shift the focus away from Sully's supposed guilt.
So it was all about control for him.
In a way, yes, control and this overwhelming guilt he carried, the need to atone for his son's mistake.
But how did he even manage to pull off those calls? Were they just recordings or something?
No, it was much more sophisticated than that. He was way ahead of his time.
What do you mean?
Remember those obituaries Sully found? Those weren't just for show.
What were they then?
They were his source material, full of those little details, those quirks of speech that make a voice unique.
So he used that information to create the calls.
He combined voice synthesis technology with AI algorithms, used those obituaries to analyze and mimic the deceased's voices.
That's insane. I mean, brilliant, but insane.
People were hearing their loved ones, their inflections, their tone.
No wonder they believed it.
It was a potent mix of technology and grief, carefully orchestrated by a man driven to atone for his past.
But Sully, he's closing in on the truth. He knows something's not right.
And he confronts Horace
About the calls.
about everything, the calls, the accident, his true identity.
Where does this all go down?
In the basement of the funeral home, surrounded by the tools of Horace's trade.
Talk about a tense showdown. So, what happens? Does Horace come clean?
He confesses to everything, admits to orchestrating the calls, to erasing those flight recordings, the whole thing.
Wow, so it's all out in the open now, but where does that leave Sully?
That's the question, isn't it? He finally has the truth, but at what cost?
It's almost like he played puppet master with everyone's lives.
The weight of that truth, it must have been crushing for Sully, you know.
To find out the calls were fake, that his whole world was built on a lie.
But then again, it meant he wasn't responsible for the accident, that his wife's death wasn't his fault.
Two sides of the same coin, right?
Man.
But what about Sully's deepest wish? Did he ever get to hear Giselle's voice again?
Funny you should ask that, because there's one final twist in this story.
Oh no, don't tell me.
Just when you think it can't get any stranger,
What happens?
Sully gets a call.
Another one.
From who?
The caller ID is blocked. Unknown number.
So he answers it, and...
He hears a voice he thought he'd never hear again. Giselle's voice.
Wait, seriously? After all this time, after everything?
The author leaves it open-ended. We never know for sure if it's really Giselle or not.
Man, that's frustrating, but kind of brilliant too, you know?
Keeps you guessing, makes you think about the possibilities.
So what happened after the dust settled? Did Coldwater just go back to normal?
Not exactly. Imagine the shockwaves, the town divided. Some people felt betrayed. Others clung even tighter to their belief.
Makes sense. It's like that saying, we see what we want to see.
Exactly. But amidst all the chaos, there were some unexpected connections. Catherine Yellen, the real estate agent.
Yeah. She ended up becoming close friends with Amy Penn, the reporter.
The one who broke the story.
Yep. Amy got so invested in everything, she actually quit her job, moved to Coldwater.
Wow. Talk about dedication. What about the others? Tess and Jack, did they ever find peace after everything?
They found solace in each other, bound by their shared loss, their manipulation at the hands of Horace.
It's strange how grief can bring people together like that.
It's a powerful force. And speaking of Horace, what about him? Any redemption for a man who orchestrated such a massive deception?
It's hard to imagine him finding peace after all that.
He did try to make amends. Remember Nick Joseph, the construction worker he framed?
Yeah, that was a wild side story.
Horace confessed to Nick's family, made sure they were financially taken care of.
So, a glimmer of conscience in the end.
It's like he was trying to balance the scales, right his wrongs.
It's a lot to unpack. The guilt, the manipulation, the need for redemption, and those calls.
The calls, the heart of it all, were they a cruel hoax or a strange sort of miracle?
It's a question without an easy answer.
And that's the beauty of it. It makes you think, keeps those big questions alive.
This deep dive into cold water, it's been a wild ride, wouldn't you say?
Full of twists and turns, ethical dilemmas, and those lingering mysteries.
Thanks for joining us on this journey, folks. It's been quite the exploration.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep listening.
See you on the flip side.
Join us again next time here at the podcast, where we dive deep into the world of best-selling books. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for future podcast notification. This is the podcast, powered by OnCue New Media.